Today, we walk through one of the heaviest stories in the Bible. It is the story of Job, a man who had it all, lost it all, and yet still clung to God. His pain is like our pain. His questions sound like our questions. And his stories teaches us one timeless truth, which is faith is tested not in sunshine, but in storms. Job lived in the land of Uz. The Bible describes him in Job 1:1 as a blameless and upright man who feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, and 500 donkeys, and a large household. In modern terms, Job was like a king, wealthy, respected, and blessed. But his true wealth was not his possession. It was his devotion. Job would even rise very early in the morning to offer burnt sacrifices for his children's sake, saying, perhaps they may have seen and cursed God in their hearts. This shows that true godliness is seen not in how we live for ourselves, but in how we intercede for others. He was going about his business in perfect harmony with man and God. Then came the heavenly test. There came a time in heaven when the sons of God came before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. For he was also a son of God. He wasn't scared of the presence of God. He showed up in his fury and deception. So God asked him, have you considered my servant Job? For there is none like him in the whole earth. Satan replied, does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you blessed the work of his hands? But I tell you, if you stretch out your hands and strike all he has, I bet he will curse you to your face. That was the greatest gamble in history. And the Lord said, very well, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself, do not lay a finger. This proves that sometimes your battles are not about your failures. They are about heaven proving your faith to her. Then the storm hit. In one single day, Job's entire life collapsed. Thousands of his oxen and donkeys were stolen by raiders of the desert. As if that wasn't enough, in the same day, a massive raging fire from heaven burned his ships in the desert. As he was trying to count his losses, the Chaldeans attacked and carried off his camels. And worst of all, just as he was trying to grieve his loss, the mother of all calamities struck. A great wind uprooted and collapsed the house where his children were feasting. All 10 of his children died. No one escaped to be his heir. For in the eyes of men, it was evidential as the news spread that he, Job, was a ruined man. Pause for a moment. Imagine standing over 10 graves in a single day of your loved one. And yet, Job fell to the ground and worshiped God, saying, the Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He said, and this is a proof that true worship is not proven by what we receive, but by what we can surrender. But as Satan, we know, he never gives up. Again and again, Satan stood before God. This time he said, skin for skin. Allow me to strike his flesh and bones, and he will curse you to your face. Already so much damage had been done, so the Lord weighed his options and allowed Satan to afflict Job with painful sores. From the crown of his head to the sole of his feet, the pain was so unbearable. So Job sat among the ashes, scraping his wounds with broken poetry. Then came a deeper wound, not from disease, but from his wife. She looked at him, broken and disfigured, and she whispered, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." For this was the deepest wound, because words are like sword. Once they are let loose, you can't catch them back. Such horrible words at the time he needed comfort. These words wasn't coming from a stranger, but from the one who shared his bed, the one who bore his children, the one who should have been his comfort, became another voice of despair. But Job answered her with quiet strength by saying to her, "You are speaking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God alone and not also trouble?" This again is a proof that even those closest to us may not understand our faith. But faith is not built on human support, it is anchored in God and God alone. So when Job's friends heard of his tragedy, they came to visit. At first, they sat in silence for 7 good days. That silence was holy, but then they opened their mouths and their words became daggers. Eliphaz was the first to speak, and he said, "Consider now who, being innocent, has ever perished." Bildad said, "When your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin." Zophar said, "Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sin." Instead of comfort, they gave condemnation. They believed Job must have sinned. But God defended his innocence. By this time, the pain was unbearable, for everyone had turned their backs against him, both in heaven and on earth. So he cried, "Why did I not perish at birth? Why is life given to those in misery?" For indeed, the story of Job shows that not everyone who speaks into your pain speaks truth. Some friends are better silent than speaking. So in his anguish, Job questioned God. He felt abandoned, unheard, forgotten. For even the strongest believers can wrestle with questions. For doubt is not in the absence of faith. It is the struggle that proves faith is alive. Then out of the wild wind, God answered Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding." God spoke of the mysteries of creations, the path of the sea, the storehouse of snow, the bed of the mountain goats, the flight of the hawk. God wasn't mocking Job. He was simply reminding him that his wisdom was infinite and human wisdom was nothing but dust. For indeed, sometimes God doesn't answer our why. Instead, he gives us a bigger vision of a reason. Overwhelmed, Job replied, "I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." For his words were born out of a sincere heart. Indeed, revelation is born when we stop demanding explanations and bow before God's greatness. And so the Lord restored Job's fortune. He gave him twice as much as before. Job's brothers, sisters, friends returned to comfort him. He was blessed with 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 oxen, 1,000 donkeys, and 10 more children. So Job lived 140 years, long enough to see 4 generations. For indeed, God is not just the God of losses, He is the God of restoration. The story of Job proves that your ending can be greater than your beginning. So what do we learn from Job? We learn that the life of this faithful man shows that integrity matters more than prosperity, that faith must endure when feelings fail, that God's wisdom is higher than ours, and that restoration comes after the test. As Job himself declared, "Though he slay me, yet I will hope in him." So now, reflect on this. If your life was stripped bare like Job's, will your faith still stand? Can God actually bet on you? Drop your thoughts in the comments because your story of faith might inspire others.